just want to say thank you so much to APSIA and to USC and to Rebekah, Christensen, and Paul. I just want to say thank you so much for asking me to speak here tonight. I'm definitely a little bit nervous, and I was asked to speak first, so that's always fun, and I'll do my best. So the first thing we were asked to do is to identify two events in our life that really helped shape and define us both professionally and personally. And the first event is actually a little bit of a cheat. I moved around a lot as a child, so I went to 12 different schools in 12 years. So I traveled, I moved around, I was always the new kid, and so even though that is a lot of events kind of combined into one, that's my first event. And then the second event is becoming a mother, and that is by far the biggest event in my life. Those two events really helped shape certain qualities in me. Moving around a lot really helped me become independent and really taught me to be okay with myself. So always being the new kid, I just had to learn to be able to walk into any group, into any setting, and be 100% okay with who I was and what I stood for. The other thing it taught me is adaptability. I learned how to adapt to different environments, different groups of people, different settings, and I learned how to be comfortable in those different environments while still being myself. And another quality it taught me is how to be okay with diversity. I am more than comfortable in any setting. I can talk to any group of people from all different walks of life, and I think that that has served me well both professionally and personally. I know undoubtedly that served me well in my life. Diversity also taught me how to be able to talk to anyone and find commonalities, that we are far more alike than we are unalike. For a long time, I only saw the shortcomings with moving, and as a kid, you hate having to be the new kid in the class, you hate having to walk into a new school and learn the lay of the land, and so I think I resented it for a large part of my growing up. And then, as I got older, I realized that having always been the new kid, really, I was completely confident and comfortable in any setting, and I would see people who grew up in the same neighborhood and went to the same school and had all of the same friends, and there's beauty in that. I just was also able to see how being okay with diversity and being independent and meeting all of these different people really helped me in a way that giving me an opportunity that other people don't normally have. And it's basically a trial by fire. So when you walk into a new school and you're the new kid and everyone's looking at you and I have a funny name and no one can pronounce it, it's really trial by fire. So you walk in and you're just like, you kind of bear down and okay, this is me, this is who I am, and I know you guys will like me if you just give me an opportunity, if you give yourselves an opportunity to get to know me. So it really gave me this ability to just like myself truly, and know that I would find other people, like-minded souls who would like me and I would like them, no matter how different they were from the last group. It also helped me figure out who I was, or who I am rather, and what I stand for. When you're meeting all of these different types of people from different backgrounds and different belief systems, it can be hard for a child to remain steadfast in their beliefs. And it taught me to be okay with that I could be very different, and I could have a different background, and my name could be different and funny, and my parents could have an accent, and that no matter what happened, I'm still okay with who I am and what I believe in. It also taught me an incredibly important skill, and that is resilience. Moving away is hard. Leaving your friends, leaving favorite schools and teachers, it's always sad. And even still, when you go to the new school and you make new friends and you find the new favorite teacher, it just teaches you to be resilient, to be able to bounce back and see the glass is half full, see the positive side of moving and moving to a new place and having to pack up all of your things, which is never a fun part of moving. And it also forced me out of my shell. Naturally, I am very much an introvert. I really am quite quiet, although no one actually believes that, who knows me. But I'm a very quiet, introverted person. I have a lot of opinions, that's for sure, but I like to spend a lot of time alone, and I'm quite shy. And unfortunately, when you're always the new kid, you can't afford to be shy. If you're shy, you are invisible. And I valued friendship more than I valued my shyness. And so I always found a way to push through those initial feelings of discomfort and not wanting to talk to people and feeling a little weird, to just going, all right, well, if I want to make some friends, I'm going to have to push myself through. And it did. It taught me how to do that. And it's a skill that even to this day, I can walk into a group of people and put my hand out and say, hello, I'm Jana, what's your name? Nice to meet you. And it's an incredible skill. And then personally and professionally, learning to be okay with being perceived as different, I would have to say that's one of the greatest gifts. I don't have any problem feeling like the odd man out. I don't have any problem being the only one speaking up if that's what's needed at the time. And I think that's one of my personal frustrations with a lack of personal leadership in certain situations is that there's these people with these incredible ideas and they really have so much going on, but they just don't want to say anything that rocks the boat. And they don't want to say anything that's going to attract too much attention or make them seem or appear different. And I think, just in general, that we need to be able to get over that and move past that, because each of us has such an important message, and if we're too afraid to speak out, the world is missing out. And so I think it's a gift. I think it can also be a burden for those around me because I'm kind of a loudmouth now, but at the same time, I know that when I'm speaking truly from my heart. And so that's absolutely a gift, and it's a gift that served me well in all areas of my life. As far as the second event in my life, which is being a parent, it is by far the most challenging and most rewarding experience I've ever had in my life. My daughter is the motivating force. She is the one thing in my life that is my compass. She's my true north, and if I make my decisions based on what is best for her, everything else miraculously falls into place. And so while being a parent is difficult, I truly do feel fortunate in that I have my guiding star. I don't have to wonder what my purpose is because I wake up and I see her every day. And that has helped guide me in every personal and professional decision in my life. Because at the end of the day, if it's a job or a responsibility is something that's going to take me away from home, it's not going to happen because my responsibility is to her. And so trying to find this balance of still being a professional and being someone who wants to advance and do well in life, and then still also have my peers and have my superiors know that my child is number one for me. It makes it really easy to make a lot of decisions because they know, like, oh, you need me to go where? When? Let me make sure that doesn't conflict with my daughter's field trip schedule. And on a deeper level, it just constantly it's a constant reminder to evaluate my life. Being a parent means that you're always on your toes, and that if there's anything going on in your life, it's showing up in your child's life, and so you have to constantly look at yourself to see how you're doing. Are you being authentic? Are you well? Are you living in balance? Those are some of the things that I know. If I start to get short-tempered or am I tired, we have this acronym that says HALT, and it's something that I do at work and at home, and it's hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And if you're any one of those things, you're not at your best. And so those, when you sense any of those, you need to halt and take care of yourself. And being a parent really forces you to take very good care of yourself so that you can then give more back later. And that's been probably one of the biggest lessons, is that I have to take good care of myself so that I can be a good mother and a good everything. Being a parent has also taught me awareness and a sense of balance. So for me, right now I'm pursuing my master's, so I'm pursuing it later in life. And that's one of those decisions that I've had to make in an attempt to find balance. So I've had to pass on promotions. I had to go back to school later in life when everyone was telling me to hurry up and make sure I was in school and make sure I was pursuing my degree. And to feel like I knew I was disappointing people who had these great aspirations for me, but internally knowing that I was doing the right thing because it just wasn't the right time, and I really did want to enjoy raising a toddler and an infant, and I didn't want to be taken away from that at the time. And so now I'm going to school, and I work full-time, and I go to school full-time, and I help my daughter with her homework, and it's certainly not easy, but it's worth it, and it's the only way that I could find balance. And so yes, I'm doing it later, but I feel like it was the wisest decision I could make. I've had to pass on promotions, which is never easy, but if it's something that, even though it might bring me more money, is going to take the balance out of my life and not allow me to give my home life the priority it deserves, then that's something that I've had to do. And again, it's one of those things where the external world is looking at you saying, well, but your title could be this and your salary could be this, and you have to say that that's not in line with my values. And we live in a world where that's just not easily accepted, unfortunately. And it's not always taken at face value. And I'm ambitious, and I want to do well, and I am a hard worker, and I am passionate about my work. So fighting some of those, passing on some of those promotions and some of those raises means that I'm constantly fighting my ego, because my ego's like, go for it, you know, full steam ahead. And then the other part of me chimes in and goes, is this really what's best for you? And I found that there's just a couple of questions that I have to be able to answer in my life to know that I'm doing the right thing. And so I have to ask myself, am I well? Is my child happy? Am I working hard? Am I showing up? And am I giving 100% of myself to my work and to my school and to my child? Because that's the important part, is being able to give all of yourself when you're in that environment and not being distracted, not being with your child but thinking about homework, or being at work and thinking about, you know, being at home with your child. And am I showing my child, and this is the most important question, am I showing my child the best possible example of how to be an upright, upstanding human being? And I'm not perfect, and as much as I like to believe that I am, I'm not perfect. And so really trying to be the best that I can be, and to show her how it looks, what it looks like when someone is trying to be an authentic version of themselves. So it definitely forces me to live with honesty and integrity and take a very long, hard look at my life quite regularly. And so obviously I'm very opinionated, and I have these very specific views on how I'm living my life, and so I'm sure that I rub some people the wrong way, although it's never intended. But overall I feel like the people that I work with and the people who I work for value and respect me, and they know that because of the way that I live my life, that when they're talking with me and when they're in a meeting with me, they know that they can take what I say at face value. And so while we may disagree, they know that they can count on me for my honesty. So we were also asked to talk a little bit about how we came to work for the state of California, and for me it was a fluke. My uncle used to always tell me, you should work for the state, you should work for the state, and I just never saw that happening. And I worked in the private sector as a paralegal for a long time, and I just figured I would do something in that. I had no idea I'd end up with the state. And sure enough, I did. My daughter was entering kindergarten, and I was not working so that I could stay at home with her while she was off for the summer. And then when she started school, I thought, well, I need a job. So my friend recommended that I go to a temp agency, or a staffing agency, which I hadn't done before. And I went, and they placed me with a state agency. They placed me with the Office of Administrative Hearings. And after working there for 2 weeks, they picked me up permanently. They had me take a test, or the beginning of the long drawn out state process, and I was picked up permanently. And I worked there as the chief calendar clerk for the special education division. So we heard all of these special education hearings throughout the state of California. And that was my first experience with the state, and I was with them for a little over 4 years, and it was, to this day, one of the greatest work experiences I've had in my life. It was incredibly challenging, very fast-paced, and they were coming in at kind of a crazy time of transition, and I fell in love. And then eventually, I decided that I wasn't going to be able to promote if I stayed there, and that was what I found. So I stayed for as long as I could, and I worked under Presiding Judge Carl Ingeman, who was one of the best individuals I've ever worked for. And when he retired, I left shortly thereafter, and I went to the Department of Justice. And I was there as a legal secretary for about 3 years. And while I was there, I was pursuing my undergraduate simultaneously. And so I worked there. And then shortly after, let's see, I was there for about 3 years. And then I left for the private sector. I decided I had had enough of this state business and I wanted a break, and I really wanted to advance and soar, and I couldn't do that in the public sector, so I thought. And so I left and I worked for a private university, and I did that for about a year, and I was traveling a lot and my schedule was a little crazy, and so I decided I wanted to return to the state, as so many of us do, and I applied to, I don't know, a billion or so different positions, and I interviewed with the Office of the Inspector General, and I interviewed with the Inspector General at the time and the Chief Deputy, and I knew that this was the place for me. And so during the interview, the Inspector General said to me, okay, it's clear you're overqualified, so I don't want to hire you and then have to go looking for a new assistant within 3 months. So, well, are you going to leave me? Are you going to leave me in 3 months? And I said, no, I promise I won't leave you. I'll give you a year. But I'm sure you'll promote me. And so it became kind of this personal challenge between he and I. So I was hired as his executive assistant, and that was 2.5 years ago. And this is the first time that I'm not on probation, because I did promote twice. I promoted to a staff services analyst, and then shortly thereafter to an associate governmental program analyst. And that's probably one of the greatest lessons I learned through working in the state, was that if you want to advance, you have to be in control of it. You have to be the one who pushes for it, and you have to be the one to kind of lead the effort, because when you work for someone and you're a hard worker and you do your job well, they do not want to lose you. And so they may love you and love having you, but they're not always going to support your advancement, because they know they're not going to be able to find a replacement who will do the job the way that you do it. And so fortunately I didn't have that experience at the Office of the Inspector General, and they were more than happy to promote me. But I found that I had to be a little bit pushy. I had to keep coming back. And it really taught me how to value my own self-worth and know what I was capable of and know what I could do if I was given the opportunity. I learned that I could be well valued and work for really great people, and they're well-intentioned people, but that it was my job. It wasn't their job to promote me. It was my job to get promoted. And so it was kind of a shift in responsibility, instead of feeling like, well, if I just work hard, eventually I'll advance, to know that I needed to make sure I did that. I love being challenged, and I love working hard, and the people I work for know that, and they know I'll consistently go above and beyond. And I think that's one of the skills that I've taken with me, is that when you create that kind of reputation for yourself, and when you work with people and they see that side of you, they really want you to succeed. And so if you're pushy enough, and I know Bob will tell you I'm a little bit of a loudmouth about the promotions and constantly hounding him, but it actually does work in my favor now. The Office of the Inspector General really continues to teach me valuable lessons about leadership. I'd have to say, working for the Inspector General has been one of the most eye-opening experiences, because I learned that I could work in a state government and not feel like I was stuck in bureaucracy. I learned that I could work for someone who took a true interest in his employees. So the Inspector General, at the beginning of every year in January, he schedules one-on-one meetings with every employee in the agency, and we have a small enough agency that he's able to do so, but I think it just says something about him as a leader that he's willing to. Because, you know, as we all know, able and willing are two very different things, and the Inspector General always wants to talk to his employees and give them an opportunity to talk to him, and he wants to hear what they have to say. Another thing he does is he takes all of his employees out for lunch once a year. And again, it's these little tiny things and these little tiny ways that your manager, and at this level, your director, the director of your agency, the head of your agency, is really taking an interest in everyone. And I've just found that people, for the most part, enjoy working for him and really are inspired to work harder because they know that he values them and is committed to the agency. We were also asked to talk a little bit about how our coworkers see us and how our supervisors see us. And I think with my coworkers, it's a little tricky. I would say for the most part, they think I'm, I'm maybe a little smart. I'm pretty smart. They think I'm pretty funny. They know that I like to have a good time at work. That's one of my favorite things to do, is that, especially given the nature of the work that we do at our agency, is to try to keep it light and try to keep it fun and not get too serious. So, if it's something like suggesting that we have a Halloween costume contest or something a little light, but it just to bring some lightness into the office, I view that as my role. But I'm also an incredibly hard worker, and I believe that all hands should be on deck when needed, and I have no problem rolling up my sleeves to do whatever needs to be done. And I think my supervisors see me as someone that they can rely on. I think they know that if they come to me with something and they need it by yesterday, I'll get it to them. They know that I'm an incredibly hard worker and that my family comes first. So as much as I'm committed and connected to the work that I do in the agency, they also know exactly how important my daughter is. And it's pretty funny, actually. If she comes into the office, everyone will stop and say to her, "Oh my gosh, I have heard so much about you," and it is the first thing that everyone says to her. And she always smiles, and then we walk away and she's just kind of like, the feeling that, yes, while I'm at work, my work is important, but my daughter, again, is still my guiding star. Thank you.
First of all, I want to say thank you, APSIA and USC and Rebekah, for inviting me to be part of this panel, because I would not have sought this out for myself. This is a very big step for me. So, again, we were asked to give a couple of events in our life that formulated who we were, both professionally and personally. And the first one is, for me, my mom was a single mother, and she had 3 kids, and I'm a little nervous. And so I, being the eldest, was tasked with, taking care of my younger brother and sister and acting as both babysitter and playmate. And when I was 11, she had 2 jobs. And that was to provide us with extra income because, of course, being a single mother, she needed it. So she often worked weekends. And when she did, my gift to her was to clean the house. Clean the house and, have it all in place so when she got home, it would be done and she wouldn't have to have that responsibility. And as an added bonus, I would make her coffee. And it was instant coffee, and I'm sure it tasted really bad, but she would come in and she'd sit down, and she was so gracious. She would sip that, at that point, cold cup of coffee. And, the 3 of us danced around her because, we wanted her attention. And the way that I viewed myself for her was that I saw myself, again, like I did with Becca, as her right hand. And I saw us as a team. Even though I was 11 years old, I saw us as a team, and we were accomplishing the daily duties as needed. So the reason why I picked this is because I do think that I am leading by being a right hand, and it really is one of my cores. It's a truth for me. Another event, again, like Jana, became pregnant at a young age, and I made the decision to keep my son, and I was devoted, and as a result, there was the judgment that comes with being a teenage mom. And so, I understood that when he was there, I understood that he was so much more than changing a diaper and sticking a bottle in his mouth. I knew that he was my responsibility, and I was going to mold and shape him because he was my contribution to the planet, and I believed that. And so I was going to give him a strong foundation, love, compassion, understanding, and some discipline. And And in that process, I completely trampled that dramatic story of being a teenage mom. I wasn't buying into that. And what this experience gave me, and others, like having a mom who raised us and being a young mom myself, was a lesson in adaptation. Again, just like you, a lesson in adaptation, because if a situation presents in a less than expected way, I adapt and I move forward. I don't think of things as a sacrifice. There's a greater goal that needs to be achieved, and I simply focus and I adjust accordingly and to achieve my goal. We were asked to describe how these traits have served us and how they are a motivating force. And how they've served me is that with adaptation and understanding that there's a goal that needs to be achieved and you adjust accordingly, like I said, integrity comes into play. And if I come from a place of integrity, I'm really contributing to my higher sense of self, because if I'm on a project or I'm on a task and I'm not enjoying it, and it's really easy for me to just kind of go, okay, I'm just going to do this. I step back and I ask myself, am I being the best person I can be in this moment? And I take that from work to home to with my friends. Am I being the best person I can be in this moment? And it's a simple question, but it's such a frame of reference for me. I can bring it back, and I can go forward from there. It pushes me to perform better, because when I walk away from a project or a task, I know that I've honored not just myself, but the people that I work with and have worked with. The other question was motivating force in both life and work, what inspires you and calls you to action. Rebekah's right, I want to do a good job. I want to do a good job whatever I'm doing, whether it's mothering or at work or in my marriage. I always want to do a good job. And I know I'm a small potato. I don't have any, again, this is a big step for me because this is not what I'm used to seeing. And so to perform to the best of my ability, it helps my coworkers perform to the best of their ability, which in turn helps our managers. And I really see us as a whole. And when we accomplish something, I can go home and feel that sense of accomplishment. It means something to me. I feel the connection, and this is a corny one, but it's so true. I tell myself I'm working on behalf of the people of my state, of California. And and I feel that, I feel like, okay, and there's this misconception about state workers that we don't work, and I know in my office we work. And I remind myself that I'm working on behalf of the people of the state of California. So, again, it's a little, kind of corny, but it keeps me grounded. It really does. Let's see, how did I come to work for the state of California? I started with the Employment Development Department 7 years ago, and I'm still there today. I work in the tax branch. And I started off as a program technician, and I collect payroll taxes, and that's, employers who haven't paid their unemployment insurance and disability insurance, that's what I collect. And what I learned from that was that I really have this great ability to communicate on a very comfortable level, so that when someone has someone calling them on the phone saying, how come you don't pay your payroll taxes, they don't feel attacked. I was able to communicate it and work with them over the phone. I got a lot of thank you letters and letters to my boss, like, she did such a great job, she made me feel comfortable. From there, I went to a tax compliance representative, and at the same time, EDD had a new database that came in. And so I was learning a new job, and I was learning a new database. And again, what happened was they took away the caseloads, and we became a service center, so that was all-day calls. And that furthered my communication skills, because they were responding to letters and bank levies, and so I was able to diffuse them. I never had anybody, I heard some horror stories, and I wasn't subject to that, because I could really say, I understand, and especially in 2008, 2009, I could say, I understand. I know that what you're trying to do is keep the business alive, not pay your taxes. So I just felt that I had this connection with people over the phone, and they felt respected. And I felt like I was tapping into that empathic side of myself, which I know I possess because, I can feel and I can understand. I am still a tax compliance representative. However, I've gone over to the support section, and this is really exciting because now I see the division as a whole. It's not just that one portion of the tax branch that collects. It's a division as a whole. And in fact, last week, it was really fantastic because my boss, a manager, she's managing 2 groups now, and she had to hold this strategic planning meeting, and this is for the 2s and the 3s. So this is high level. And she's like, I need to pull you in on this. Are you going to be okay with it? And I said, sure. What do you need me to do? So it completely tapped into all of the strengths that I had when we were working together. I was making posters. I was anticipating needs. People were like, I was up there scribing. I did all this that I put together things. Everything that I'm good at that I could just do like that, it was done. And it was this different side for her to see because she was like, you already got that done? You already got that done? I was like, yes. I did. So it was funny to have that experience and then to have this coming, to be able to fit this in. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it really tapped into my strengths, like I said. The other question, how did each prior position take you to the next? Again, I've been with the state in the tax branch the whole time, but with each new position, there is a learning curve, and you have to adjust accordingly, right? You gotta take time to fine tune. And what I do is I'm fortunate enough to work with some really professional people who will share their ideas and share their knowledge with me. So I'll fine tune what I already know, and then I'll let go of things that no longer work for me because I've learned how to do it better. I'm in my middle years, so I get to work with the younger generation, and they show me all their techie know-how, which I really appreciate. And but there's the older generation who are disciplined, and they have all that program knowledge, and they're very generous with their information. How do my coworkers see me? My manager says I'm too hard on myself, but she appreciates me, and she tells me that every time our one-on-one. I'm pretty easy to work with. I like to have an exchange of ideas. I'm not afraid to say what I think, and I'm adept enough to say it respectfully. I'm told that I'm reliable, and I'm thanked constantly for my contribution to the group. Closing statement. Again, this is not something I would have chosen for myself. I would never have stepped into this and grasped it, but I'm really pleased to be here. And what it shows me is that, again, the hierarchy of leadership doesn't really exist. And not having those boundaries, I'm able to embrace who I am. And when I was writing about myself, I was like, well, I know who I am. And it was a nice revisit because what it did is it reminded me of my goals and my path and that I can succeed in whatever position I'm in. Thank you.
So first of all, I would like to make a correction. Just to make it more impressive, I came to the U.S. At age 16 instead of 12.
Oh, that is more impressive.
And then I remember one of the classes I took in college was linguistic. It was talking about how if you were to learn another language after your age of 12, it's really easy for the native speaker to tell that you're not native speaker. And then, so I try as hard as I can to learn English at first. So to begin my backstory, my parents are just amazing. They are hard workers. They're the people with the genuine heart. And if I were to be considered a good person, then it's all my parents' influence. So my dad came to the U.S. When I was 9 years old, and before that, we were always living in a 3-people family. Me and my parents. And then at that point, I know that I had to be more independent, even though I was even before age of 10. I need to support my mom to do everything in China. And then I think it's that point that I really learned to be independent and then start taking responsibilities. And then 7 years later, my mom and I came to the U.S. Although that it's true that I learned English in China. Actually, not very late, but I learned a few grammars and classes with English. But then when you just come to a new country with that different language, you're just not gonna you're not going to use it, and you're not gonna be able to adapt right away. So at that point, I was even afraid to go to a grocery store and then buy a pack of gum or anything like that. And then I used to always carry a dictionary, and then I always translate everything at that point. And it just gets really difficult because you can't translate everything. You have to eventually use that language and then be adaptive. That's how I started thinking I really should use English to understand English, which means use English to English dictionary, and then start also culture, start to adapt in American culture. And I think that's where I have been, just adapting culture and learning English for the first 2 years I have been here. And then, so I think this tonight is really great for me to reflect on what I have done, because I always think that I don't take a second and look back to what I have done, but tonight serves as a reminder for me, just like now that I need to remind myself not to be nervous. And so in the state, I really wanted to say that I am really lucky, and I'm thankful to be involved in the state and to have a chance to have internship in the state. I have interned in Department of Human Resources at first, and then I was referred to Department of General Services, and then lastly Department of Social Services. Each step is like a upgrade and a different environment, and more importantly, it is more related to what I do in school, which is applied mathematics. I get to work. In my last intern in the state, I get to work on population projections. That is very interesting and exciting. I think one of the key lessons I learned from all this internship is that I can say all of people I've met in the state, they're all selfless. They're just selfless, and they're very helpful. Maybe not just me, but I feel that they're really helpful to me, but I'm sure that they're helpful to everyone else. And that, I think that's the main thing that I learned, to be selfless, just like them. Also, in the States where I see leadership really, in practice, because I work with a lot of executives, and then basically people are considered leaders in the state, and then they're just really helpful and in mentoring me, also in personal referrals, and they know that what I need, and then they just their sense is just so incredible and precise. They know what I need, so I feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge and professionalism in the state. So then after I graduated, I chose to a opportunity came up. I choose to work as a financial analyst because I think I want to make impact right from the start, if I can, and that's where I really think the private enterprise is to offer for the recent graduate. And then, at age of 23, right now, I think that I'm blessed with this experience, that I get a little bit understanding of the state and a little bit understanding of the private enterprise. And I can compare and see how two systems work. But I know that we're living in a digital society right now, and everything's real time. And I, just from Rebekah's Navigating Leadership, APSIA's program, we can see that the government is not 8 to 5 anymore. It serves us just 24/7. And then I realized that everyone, no matter who we are, what kind of where we sit in the hierarchy, we're all unique. We're all important. I think we need to recognize that, and then we are able to speak, and our voice will be heard. That is, I think, that is innovation for every one of us. I think the most important message tonight from me, if I can represent my generation, is that the biggest shift I can see from the government in order to attract the younger generation is that if we can allow them to make contribution and take great responsibility right from the start, I think that's a good thing, because just like me, from personal experience, I used to think everything's so easy, and I used to just feel like, oh, if I'm in his position, then I can do just as good as him. But that is not, just from completing project and internship and the work that I had just from now, I realized that's not right, it's not true. And the more I see, I feel like the less I know. And and I think that's also an interesting point that drives me to be more curious, to learn more as well. So I think giving young people greater and greater responsibility allows us to see the complexity and the difficulty of taking this responsibility, and that is, I think that is probably the biggest shift that I can see in government, if not in the future. And as young people, I think we do want to change the world, and we want to bring new ideas to us. So and just like me, I feel like a lot of us do respect the wisdom and the experience of our elders, and in turn we would like to be recognized, our knowledge and our innovative ideas and our insight of our digital world, that is ours to give. Thank you very much.
So I would like to thank APSI for having me here today, and thank you, Rebekah, for inviting me. Sorry, I'm talking a little bit too loud. So I'm Jake Johnson, and I'm going to take some of the ideas that we were asked to discuss a little bit out of order. I'm going to talk a little bit about where I started out, where I came from, and then I'm going to talk about sort of some strategies and approaches that I found to be valuable over the course of my life and career, and talk a little bit about what it means to me to be a professional, and then I have some kind of summarizing thoughts towards the end. I'm going to, if it kills me, I'm going to stay on my time schedule. So I grew up in Northern California. I've been legally blind since birth, and I actually was going to try not to even mention that. Most of you know, some of you anyway, folks that I work with and know professionally, and I really don't think it's important. The fact that I have a visual if I can characterize it as an impairment. We all have challenges in life, and it's true that we can use the word disability, and many who have a condition like mine consider themselves to have a disability and to be disabled. I think it's really valuable and important to remember that disability is kind of just a label that we apply to people, to ourselves, to others, and it's just that. I mean, you can't catch a bad case of disability. You're not going to find a doctor anywhere that's going to make a prognosis of. Come in. Can you imagine that they come in and they say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, sir. Mr. Johnson, you have disability." I know it's a terrible diagnosis, and so we're really sorry. It just doesn't happen. It's we give ourselves that. We put that label on ourselves, and it's a way that we often, or at least I have felt that whenever I think of myself as being disabled, as having a disability, as the current sort of nomenclature du jour is a person with a disability, so then we sort of say, well, you're a person first. So that's at least kind of good. But so it is good. But it's whenever I think of myself that way, I have to say, are you doing that because you want to limit yourself? Are you just sort of making an excuse? So growing up in Northern California, I didn't think of myself as having a disability. In fact, when I was in high school, they make everybody take driver's ed. Whether you're going to drive or not, you have to take driver's ed because it's part of a whole curriculum that covers a bunch of other stuff that you're supposed to, like health and, I don't know, sex ed and whatever. So I had to take driver's ed, and I thought, oh, they're not going to put me in driver's ed if I'm not going to get to drive, right? So I thought, I'm going to, they're going to give me these, and for those of you that remember the glass Coke bottles, right? I thought, I'm going to have this pair of glasses. It's going to be these Coke bottle glasses, and I'm going to be able to drive. They're going to let me out on the road. I'm going to have maybe like a red Corvette, and it didn't work out, and I was angry. Oh my God, I was really angry about that. I never knew anybody who had a disability, or who was blind, or there would be occasions where, like the Lions Club or somebody would have some kind of function, and I would interact with other people who were blind or had some kind of physical disability, and it was weird to me. I thought, oh my gosh. And frankly, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. The people that I met growing up that were supposedly like me, they seemed helpless, and they seemed like they were not like me, because I had all my brothers, sister, the people who lived around us, my condition was not an issue. It was, I just did everything everybody else did. And there were allowances made. I got like 5 strikes when I played baseball instead of 3. When we, of course, I lived rurally, okay, so we would shoot each other with BB guns. We would put all this padding on ourselves, we'd shoot each other with BB guns. Everybody else would have like an air rifle, those old air rifle BB guns at Daisy's or whatever. So they would let me use the CO2, so I could just fire without having to, cock the gun and prepare it. So that was sort of my first brush with reasonable accommodations. Right? So, yeah, it was great. I had a great childhood. It was wonderful. But I started working around the age of 14. Had my first regular job at age 16. Worked in a pizza parlor. There's a Shakey's, for those who remember. Great pizza. I don't know what happened. I wish there were, there were more. There are a few locations around, but it's a great job. And they hired me through a program that would pay for part of my first several weeks of salary. And that was, it was a great experience. I'll talk about it just a little bit here, because I think it's something that's lasted through my entire life. People will take you from where you are. If you come in and you seem like you can do it, then you can do it, as far as most people are concerned. I can't say that I've ever worked in an environment where I thought that I was being treated any differently because of my disability. So we'll talk a little bit about what I think has made me at least feel like I was living life the way I wanted to over the course of my life. So growing up, my family, we all cooked together a lot. Both my parents worked, so when we got home from school, there was a certain expectation that we would make some effort to help with dinner. And so in learning to do that, I wasn't off the hook because of any kind of, my vision wasn't a factor. So learning to, my parents sort of would approach me by saying, well, gosh, what do you think you need to do? You see what the expectation is. They would go through it. Okay, we're going to make scrambled eggs, or we're going to cut up the ingredients for a salad. My parents didn't believe in appliances, so we used knives pretty much for everything. So yeah, at like 5, 6 years old, I'm cutting things up for salads, and they would say, what do you need to do? What do you think is good? Well, I can't really see the stove. I can't see the markings on the stove. Well, put your hand up here on the control. You can tell that if you point it this way, you feel a little pointed part goes this way. Okay, that's high. Then down is medium. And then on the other side is low. So you know, you got your magnifying glass. You can read they write up these recipes for me to follow. So they would say, okay, first so then I started making them for myself. Myself, I would make these recipes, and I would know that I would have to use a bit different approach than the people around me. My brothers and sister could see what they were doing in the kitchen, and sometimes I could because I have a little bit of vision, but a lot of times I couldn't, or I could, but the whole act of trying to see what I was doing actually would slow me down. Relying on touch was faster. So I really learned from those early experiences that, one, I had to know what I needed to do to get to the goal. Of course, you have to know what the goal looks like too. I mean, that's sort of one that we skip over a lot of the time, but you have to really be able to, and this is characterized in a bunch of different ways I've heard, but really you have to know what success looks like. You have to know what is success, and then spending the effort to figure out how you need to get there. Another experience, my parents, our hobby as a family was snow skiing. So I learned to ski when I was about 6 years old, and my parents didn't want me going on the ski lift, and I don't know if they were worried about my safety because of my blindness, or they never talked about it really, other than to say that if you want to go on that ski lift, by God, you're going to learn to stop, you're going to learn to turn, you're going to do all that up front beforehand. I don't know, maybe they just didn't want to like waste the money on the lift ticket and then find out that I couldn't do it. But I really wanted it. My brother, who was older, could ski. He learned to ski pretty quickly, very athletic, and I wanted that too. I wanted to be able to, be a big boy, as it were. So that was important to me, and I did what it took, and I was able to demonstrate to my parents that I could execute all the good control around skiing, and so they had no choice. They said, well, we told him we'd buy that lift ticket for him if he could do it, so they did. Then, my first job, then another experience that was valuable. My first job, I sort of had the experience, kind of the first time in my life when somebody very clearly said to me, look, you have a severe limitation, and that makes us want you all the more because you seem like you'll be a really hard worker, so we want you in this job. So that was the assistant manager. The manager was way more pragmatic. He was not a particularly nice individual, and his approach was, hey, this program for handicapped kids is paying for your wage for the first 6 weeks. I don't have to keep you after that. I'm going to get some free work out of you. He was fair, though. When I finished that trial period, he said, you're doing a really good job. but don't think I'm gonna cut you any slack. You got the job, but you're gonna have to do the work just like everybody else, and you are, just keep doing it. So I had sort of the experience of somebody saying, I don't care what your deal is, you come in here and perform, that's all I care about. And then I also had the experience of someone saying, hey, you know, we respect what you're doing. And so I had that early on, and really, I remember better the manager's approach to me, because it made me feel like, gosh, I'm getting what I want. I want to be treated like everyone else. I want to be a regular guy, and this is the way. This is the way generally I think you can expect to be treated, and it was. It gave me a good approach. Those experiences gave me a really good approach for what I would need later, which was to really define success for myself with no help, and understand what I needed to get there. And so through college, through grad school, I did that. I defined success for myself, whether it was just getting through the semester or it was where I wanted to be later on in life. And to be honest, I'm really in the habit of kind of loosely defining goals as they are farther out. I can tell you what I want to do tomorrow, I can give you a whole list, but you ask me what I want to do 20 years from now, it's a lot more vague, but I have thought about it, and I think it's important to do that. As far as being a professional is concerned, and sort of what I try to bring to the table as a professional, I'm not gonna say as a leader, because I feel like what you do, the strategies you use in life have to be simple, easy to do, easy to sort of keep in the forefront of your mind, because you can't have these elaborate strategies because life happens too fast. So as far as actually in the workplace, and really just in general as a person, I feel that it's really important to take pleasure in the small things. My wife will tell you that I will not eat a banana that is past the state of yellowness that I need it to be, and I won't eat it if it's too green. There's a window of about a day usually that I'll eat a banana, and so I'll eat like 3 or 4 of them in that one day. And it's really important. I gotta catch them with that. I'll throw them away if they're like, or she makes banana bread sometimes. But it's really important to celebrate those small things, and I'm happy about it. I'll be in a good, if I know I got bananas to eat that are the right way, it'll make me happy all day long. And I have thousands of things in life that do that. A great conversation with my wife, a perfect cup of coffee, something that if I turn something in on time, just any number of things. Have a great conversation with a mentor. There's just any number of great things to take pleasure in. So I like to do that. So finding something great in every effort that I take on. There's something good about every job. And if you're not finding it in your job, then you probably need to find something else to do, as far as I'm concerned, in my life. I tend to reflect a lot, and that's a big part of it. Just making sure that I'm always contributing value around me. And really, just talking about how others perceive me in the workplace, I think approaching work and life with enthusiasm, it's infectious to the people around me. I found it's infectious. That sometimes if you're having a good day, or even if you're not, but you're convinced that you can and you really try to, the people around you will do that too. It's kind of miraculous. I worked in a place where actually having just the enthusiastic and giving people to work around. One of my colleagues, a project manager at Department of Finance, where I started my state career, he actually called us. Anybody ever watch the cartoon show Voltron? It's like about these robots, and there's a bunch of different ones, and they all combine together in this giant robot at the end of the show every time. Same ending every time. Beats the bad guy, right? And he said, we're like Voltron. We all contribute something that we're good at, and then we just form and together at the end and just solve the huge problem. And so that's, I try to remember that, and I try to recreate that same type of scenario in the teams that I'm on, because really being accountable for what you do and being sort of taking your success or failure as something that is yours to own. I found that to be really valuable, because there are a lot of people around in life that will want to help. They want to see you be successful, but no one knows your goals and what you need to be successful better than you do, better than I do. I found in life that as long as I'm bringing it to the table, all the good that I have to offer and to bring with me, others will see that, and they'll, in many cases, in most cases, try to pull together with me, and in those cases where they don't, it's on me. It's still my responsibility to be successful. So I endeavor to do that. Thank you very much.